Hey guys, Andrew Scott here from OwnerShift. I own 4 restaurant locations and I've helped over 500 other restaurant owners make more money with their restaurant, grow their sales, and have more freedom with their time. What I wanted to talk about today is whether you focus on what's happening today, putting out fires, or focus on the future, because those are going to have massive ramifications for your business. And so let me give you an example for me. When I first started out in my restaurant, I only focused on the present. Somebody called in sick, man, I had to go cover a shift. All of a sudden things weren't happening well. I'm the one that picked up the slack. The people didn't, clean the floors properly. Guess who mopped them? It was this guy. I did everything, and it was just day to day. It was all I could do to survive the day and get on to the next one. And at that time, I was working 18 hours a day, and I did it day in and day out, no days off. Like I did this for 2 years, right? So I focused on just what was happening every day and putting out the fires. And I viewed all of the bad things that happened as things that just came and happened to me. So for example, staff turnover, boom. I'm like, oh man, everybody's quitting on me. They must suck. So therefore, I need to go and hire more people. And once I fix that, it was good for a little bit. Then I'd have another wave of people quit. And I'd be like, man, nobody wants to work anymore. All that kind of stuff. So I was then feeling like that. And the thing is, I didn't realize that I could actually predict some of those things. I just didn't have enough years in business yet to be able to predict this. So here's what I learned is that the restaurant business is seasonal. And you guys know this, right? Because your area, it gets hotter in the summer, it gets colder in the, you guys know this. It's not news. If you were in North America, you probably have 4 seasons for a lot of us. So I live, northern part, and basically, yeah, so we have 4 seasons. It's cold in the winter, you don't want to go outside, snowy, all that kind of stuff. But here's what I learned. For the business that I had, there's 2 major turnover times. Number 1 was in the fall, because even though I didn't necessarily hire all university students, I had a lot of people in the job market. So this is where it fluctuates, right? Just picture this for a second. So in September, a lot of people who were summer students all of a sudden go back to school. Those are availability changes, right? People then go from one, area where they live off to college. They do different things. So even though you might not hire all people that this happens to, where they go off to college, or, you might not live off of high school students, for example, in your business, but what happens is that the job market changes, because you might not, but a lot of businesses do. So what happens is that all of a sudden there's a big pull out of the job market around August, September, of people going back to school and stuff like that. And it takes a little bit to normalize, right? Because all of a sudden everybody's leaving, which means everybody starts hiring. So even if you don't rely on those people, that means there's more job openings out there. People are upping their wages because they're trying to get good candidates, and they're not getting the candidates the way they were before. They're trying to up their wages to attract more candidates, which means people could leave your business and jump on to another job at that point, right? So that could happen. Or, the candidates that are left aren't going to be the greatest. So if you start hiring in August and September, all of a sudden you kind of have an issue, because you're dealing with fewer people in the job market and way more competition. Same thing happens typically in March and April. And the reason this happens again, so it's twofold, because that's also when some school ends, like university, college, and stuff like that. So you get the same type of thing, people switching, they're moving into maybe summer jobs. There's another thing too, is they don't all go and get a job right away. So say someone finishes their exams in university or college, they usually wait a few weeks. They want to have a little bit of a summer break before they get into a summer job. So they wait a few weeks. Now, what also happens at that time is it's springtime. It gets busier, right? So sales go up. And what happens when sales go up? Businesses want to hire more. So most people start trying to hire, but then they realize that there's been turnover, and that all of a sudden there's fewer people in the job market, more jobs open, it's high competition. And so I kept having these waves of staff turnover, and I couldn't see it because I was just so focused on the day-to-day. I thought everything was just a one-off situation. But eventually I stepped back and I said, why does this happen? Every September, every April, why does this happen? And then I looked at that and I'm like, oh shit, this has happened to me for 10 years. That's when I figured it out. 10 years I had this happen, and I didn't connect the dots. I like to think I'm a smart guy. I was not smart enough to see that earlier. Anyway, 10 years it took me to figure this out. Now, once I did, I was then able to go and I said, okay, if I know there's turnover in April, I'm going to hire in February. Because guess what? In February, in my area, nobody's hiring. It's still cold. Sales are low. Nobody's hiring because nobody has hours. Well, guess what? Because nobody's hiring at that point, anyone who is in the job market, you can actually get the best candidates at that time because nobody else is hiring. You are then the best option. Whereas in April, when everyone's hiring and even higher paying places are hiring, you're not the best option anymore. You're fighting against 100 other people for candidates, of which there are not many. When in February, I'm fighting against like 5 other businesses and there's like, hundreds of candidates. So it's different, right? You actually get to pick the best people during that point in time. And so I started hiring February and I started hiring in about July to preempt the back to school kind of thing. So once I started doing those things, I didn't have those turnover issues anymore, because what I found in the years when I was just focused on the day-to-day stuff and putting out the fires and dealing with that, I found that once that happened, it actually took me like 6 weeks. So like 2 weeks to hire, 4 weeks to train, then get people up to the efficiency. So it took me 6 weeks, twice a year. And so that ended up being 3 months of the year that I could not focus on growing my business. I was focused on survival, right? You can't grow a business when 3 months of the year you're just trying to survive, right? That's not how you're going to take your business to the next level, no matter what business you're in. So I had to understand those seasons and those patterns. And once I did, I was able to then preempt them so I didn't have to deal with them anymore. Other things started to happen too. Because I wasn't stuck in survival mode, I actually could plan my marketing in advance. Because how many of you guys have been in a situation where you're like, man, sales are slow. Maybe it's January, February. Maybe that's your slow time. And so in January and February for me, I would always be like, man, my sales are slow. I got to go and I'll do a mail out, or I'll do this other campaign, or I'll do this promotion or special. And then I would have to think of the ideas, and then I'd have to send it for, design, for graphic design. I'd have to send it to get it printed or executed. And all of a sudden 4 weeks go by, 5 weeks go by, and finally everything's ready. And I'm like, by then it's too late. I've endured this for 5 weeks. My sales have been slow. And now it was getting into spring and sales were going up anyway. So it's like, I didn't actually solve the problem I was trying to solve just because I wasn't prepared for what was going to happen. Right? So those are a couple key things that I needed to change. Is I needed to plan my marketing ahead. I needed to plan my staffing ahead. And here's what happened. Once I started getting ahead and I looked at my staffing, and I believe that we need to be 110% staffed, because there's always going to be people calling out. There's always going to be vacations. There's always going to be turnover. That's just part of the business. So if you have the exact amount of hours that you need and that are available, you are always going to run short, because guess what? We deal with people and stuff happens. It's life, right? And so we need to have a little bit more hours available than what we actually have scheduled, because you know what? Maybe then we can call someone in, because if somebody's already worked 40 hours, right? They don't want to come in and pick up an extra shift or two, right? They don't want to go into overtime, right? But if they're sitting at, 37 hours or 36 hours, sure, it's not as bad to go and pick up that extra shift or come in for a few hours or whatever the case is, right? So we need to be a little bit protected from that. And so I went through years of in the day-to-day just dealing with these problems and feeling like everything was happening to me. These people were quitting on me. They were calling in sick on me. Like it was like some sort of personal attack, and it wasn't. It's just life. I wasn't prepared for it, so I felt like a victim in this because I felt like I had no control. But what I did was I took control by preparing in advance. And you know what happened? I started to perceive my business totally differently, because instead of going on this emotional roller coaster where, everything's great 1 minute and, we had a really busy dinner time or a really busy lunch rush and everything's great. All of a sudden you wake up the next morning, somebody calling in sick, and you're mad because you've got to go and now fill this shift, or can't make it to your kid's basketball game because you've got to go cover something. Like, you get off that emotional roller coaster when you plan ahead for your business, and you can actually grow your business. You can be more profitable that way, and you can grow your sales that way, right? And not only that, you have a life. And so I wanted to ask you guys, in your business today, do you focus on what's happening today, or are you focused on what's happening a month from now or 2 months from now? Because if you are stuck in the day-to-day, my guess is that you are stressed, you're probably not making the type of money that you should be, and you don't have the sales that you should be. If all those things are happening, you are stuck in the day-to-day. So that's my guess. This isn't true for everyone, but I believe it's true for a lot of people. So what I want you to do is start looking at the bigger picture in your business. Start looking at things strategically. Okay, so right now might be stressful. So as I'm recording this is August. So okay, what you should be thinking about now, what's going to be happening in October? What's going to happen in November? That's the range of planning that you need to have. And if you start planning that way and planning for the future, and every month writing down, okay, what happened? What was good? What wasn't good? What would I repeat? What would I do differently? And how can I prepare for that in advance? You start writing all these things down every single month. Pretty soon you're going to have a plan for the entire year. You're going to know your ebbs and your flows of your business and be able to prepare for it. So if you are in the shoes right now where you're struggling day to day, where you're stuck in the moment, where you're dealing with all the people calling in and not working out well and people quitting and you're not making the type of money you want and you're stressed and you're feeling overwhelmed, that's totally okay. I was there too. Maybe it's time to reach out. And again, we can talk about this. I do have some free resources available for people in your exact situation because I was there and I was able to overcome it. And if you really want some help, totally open to having a conversation as well about what it looks like for me and our company to work with you. And again, we've helped over 500 restaurant owners make more money with their restaurant, up to 20-25% profit margins, grow their sales, and have a life and a business at the same time. So if that is you, look forward to hearing from you, but I hope this is valuable for you guys and can't wait to chat soon. Bye.